I think it is important that we gather on this day, a day we will never forget. 13 years ago, September 11th of 2001, was a horrific day where Americans and others lost their lives, and there were many who were alive at dawn on that day that are no longer with us. And we see with Portrait of a Soldier the faces and the souls of those service members who answered the call to duty after 9/11, went forward in the face of danger, lost their lives defending our democracy. And I think it is very meaningful that this wonderful campus, the University of Illinois at Chicago, is so committed to making sure that we take good care of those who have borne the battle. I think all of the service members in Portrait of a Soldier, if they could say one thing to all of us, the living, it would be to take care of their buddies, those they served with, not to break faith with them. And so that's why we're here today. Portrait of a Soldier has been all over Illinois, but I think it's especially important to be at educational institutions like this one, because you can see from the youth of many of our service members who lost their lives, who gave their full measure of devotion to our democracy. They were very young. This past summer, I went to the wake of a young service member from Mokina, and he was only 19 years old. And when I talked to his mother, reflecting back on September 11th of 2001, he was 6 years old. And 13 years later, we cannot forget that there are many, many service members who volunteered to defend our democracy. And we're eternally grateful to them, and especially to those who gave their ultimate sacrifice. And some years ago, almost a decade ago now, a young man on my staff came to me, and he had the gift from God of being able to do portraits. And he had done a portrait in his hometown of Mattoon, Illinois, of Charles Neely. Charles Neely was killed in Iraq, and this young man on my staff, Cameron Schilling, drew a portrait of Charles Neely, and then gave that portrait to his parents. And they were so moved by this gift that Cameron Schilling on my staff asked if I could introduce him to other Gold Star families who had lost their sons or daughters, and he would do a portrait for them. And he has done this over the last 10 years. And anyone who has seen Portrait of a Soldier, whether it's here in Chicago or anywhere else in Illinois, when you see it, it transforms your life. And that's exactly what we hope to do. We want to make sure that even if for a minute or two, if people can stop and look at one or more of these portraits, look and learn about someone who gave their life for our country, and look into their eyes, you see their soul. Just this very day as I was walking in, Dan Johnson from Schiller Park, who gave his life for our country, his aunt was here, and she's sitting over there, and I want to thank you for coming. It's important for us to remember. We can never, ever forget. It's our duty, the living, to remember and carry on the wonderful life of service of these men and women who wore the uniform of our country. They understood that service to others is the highest calling of human beings, and they volunteered. And in the Old Testament, there is a prophet Isaiah who talks about righteous oaks, those who volunteer for challenging and difficult assignments, and they go forward in the face of danger. And so the purpose of this memorial is to make sure that all of us on 9/11 and every other day never ever forget and remember these special human beings who came from our state of Illinois. More than 300 have lost their lives in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and they are no longer with us, but they are always with us in our hearts and our memories, and our faith teaches us we will see them again, and we will thank them for their purposeful lives of service. And I think it's important that the memorial always be with us. I hope it lasts long after I'm gone from this earth, so people can say at the beginning of this century, in a very terrible day, that we the people came together, defended our democracy, had heroic souls that came forward and defended that democracy to protect all of us. And they're pictured, and their portraits are here forever.
To the University of Illinois at Chicago, one of my two alma maters, the other being Northwestern, for hosting this splendid event and for providing a great public space to be able to show the Portrait of a Soldier exhibit. For many of us who may not know that the University of Illinois at Chicago got its initial start by catering to the needs of service members returning from World War II when the University of Illinois was at Navy Pier. And to the almost 4,000 Gold Star families across the country who have endured the pain and the suffering for all of us in service to this great nation. And to the almost 330 Illinois families whose loved ones gave their last full measure of devotion in service to our country, they represent the very best ideals and the values of our beloved heartland. So today is a very special day for many of us. We stand here together to honor those who died in the vicious attacks on New York, on the Pentagon, and outside a lonely field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, 13 years ago. And to the almost 3,000 men, women, and children, the vast majority innocent civilians who were killed in a series of cowardly terrorist acts. While there were 55 military personnel that died at the Pentagon, there was also 300 other uniformed men and women from the fire department, from the police department, from the emergency responders who died while running inside the buildings in an attempt to save others. And I vividly recall that Tuesday morning, as a young Marine stationed in 29 Palms, California, and watching those horrific acts that soon enveloped our nation. And 6 months later, I found myself with my fellow Marines in Kandahar, Afghanistan. And soon thereafter, also on my way to Iraq. So as we are reminded of those service of those who have served in uniform, we must also remember and honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice in defense of this great nation. So here at this event with Portrait of a Soldier exhibit, we can put into action the sense of gratitude that we owe the 22 million veterans who live across America and the nearly 1 million veterans and military families who call the great state of Illinois home. With less than 0.4% who are serving in our nation's military, never have a scant few borne such a sacrifice. You see, as we recall, though, there are more than 300 families from Illinois who haven't heard that gratitude from the rest of us have. And so they are our fallen men and women of Illinois who lost their lives in service to this country. And as their faces look at us today from these portraits behind me, reminding us of the hundreds of thousands of others lost on earlier battlefields, there could be nothing more important than remembering them, than honoring them, and thanking them and supporting the families that they have left behind. These families that we call here today the Gold Star families, who have come from the communities throughout Illinois, from the heartland, and from the fabric of America. Just as we owe a lasting gratitude and support to our Illinois veterans here throughout the great state of Illinois, we also owed a continued and lasting effort to honor our fallen brothers and sisters and to cherish their memory by supporting their families.